to the Q&A Café. Here we are at the Georgetown Club in Georgetown. And also, I believe today, starting simultaneously, a podcast, I think that's in the works. And I want to thank all the audience who came out today. And I want to thank our special guest, Daniel Boulud, who just arrived from Boston, and God knows where he's going next. But I just want to say, I hope you noticed that the French market is going on the streets outside here in Georgetown today.
Oh, really?
Yeah, you
I
may
have
not.
to go.
Now, I could have told you that we arranged that just for you, but
I'll check that out.
yes,
after.
there's an accordionist just down the street.
Mm-hmm.
So,
well, good afternoon, everybody.
Thank you.
And thank you, Carol.
You're
thank
welcome,
you for
Daniel.
having me here in Georgetown.
Yeah, it's good to see you.
I'm having flashback.
It's yes. You know, I know exactly when we can flash back to too. I think it was maybe 1982 or 1985 at the Plaza Athénée in New York, and I was just back from a trip to the islands, and the chef's name was Richard Adam.
Yes,
who worked
absolutely.
for Antibes. He worked for the chef from Antibes at the Maliwana, right? And he had said, if you're flying through New York, you have to go to the Plaza Athénée and see Daniel Boulud.
But before that,
Westbury.
I didn't know you.
No.
Before that, but I arrived in D.C. in 1980 and lived 2 years in Washington, and I was always in Georgetown because there was that little market, Georgetown Market.
Right, the wonderful Georgetown Market.
And Nathan's, where I will go and party and.
We were I hope after hours.
And yeah, well, that was pretty rowdy. Your place.
It was. Well, that was before cell phones.
Yes, for sure.
That was when you could hide out.
And so I do have fond memories of Georgetown, of course.
And Washington. Yeah, I want to talk to you about your whole journey, but I thought that since we're in Washington, and I've listened to so many interviews with you, and everybody always talks to you about the world, that we might talk a little bit about Washington.
About your village.
About our village. Because you did come here first. This was your landing place.
Very much.
When you came from France. And I wondered if you knew what you were getting yourself into.
Yes, I knew. I always dreamed to come to America and travel, and I found the best job ever because I was a private chef in the European Economic Community. It was a very small house.
Did you get to live in the house?
About 5 minutes,
okay.
Yeah. Because I didn't like it.
You didn't like it that much?
I was in the maid quarters, so I said, no, that's not a good idea. And so, but that was the first time that they really had a chef there. And Mr. and Mrs. de Kergole, they really wanted the chef to be good and to be noticed. And so they brought me, and we definitely had a famous table there. And it gave me the chance to also discover the country because I had a lot of vacation. So, coming to this country, you dream to come, but at the time you could come illegal and get a job and all that. Here, I had a car, I had a job, I had a lousy salary, but at least I had a lot of vacation, so it was good.
And you were unencumbered.
And I had a visa.
Right, you had a visa, and you didn't have a family at the time, so you
No,
could do
absolutely.
whatever.
I was 25 years old, and I think for me it was just the perfect dream come true to be able to come to visit this country. And
was there a tradition in this job of bringing over a chef from France, or were you an experiment?
No, the French embassy had a chef, Francis.
Right, you're a good friend, Francis.
Absolutely, long-time friend.
Got La Piquette in Cleveland Park.
Absolutely,
yeah.
very much. And so that was kind of my welcoming buddies here in Washington. Jean-Louis Paladin, Francis, and all the team of Jean-Louis.
Jean-Louis was the king.
Jean-Louis was the king. But interestingly enough, I was working 2 years before I came to D.C. In Michel Guérard in the southwest of France. And at the end of the year, we had our staff parties with all the sort of part of the staff, the kitchen party with Michel Guérard. And we went to Jean-Louis restaurant in Condon in the southwest. And that night, Jean-Louis was not there because he was negotiating to come to America. And then he left maybe 6 months later in 79.
Yeah.
He left for Washington and started.
And did he ever make a splash? I
Oh
mean,
yeah, it was really fantastic.
I consider him now, since he's no longer with us, sort of the patron saint of Washington chefs.
Very much, very much.
What he started, not just in terms of the people who worked for him and went on to do amazing things, was just the brazenness of his personality, the fearlessness of it. It sort of broke the mold.
Very much. Plus, you know, when he was in France, he was the youngest chef to get 2-star. And I think he was really, he was born with cuisine classique, but he was raised with nouvelle cuisine.
Yeah.
And I think, and I think that brought, when he came here, he revolutionized the whole restaurant expectation. It was only a single tasting menu. It was way avant-garde from, you know, like now great chefs are doing single tasting menu and not no choice, no a la carte. Jean-Louis was writing his menu every day in the afternoon because he learned to do calligraphy. So
yes.
He was writing his menu.
Do any of you remember that? Oh my God, they were the most beautiful
and also
menus.
he was so
took them home.
He was so artistic and sometimes a little off focus. So he will wait until last minute to write the menu. So it was like at 4 o'clock in the afternoon, he still didn't know what he was going to cook that night.
Yeah. You know what else was interesting about Jean-Louis back then too, which now is also something very, you would never find it, is for a restaurant of that class, he still served lunch.
Yeah,
and that's
it's
pretty
true.
much gone away for the
It's true.
highest end.
Yeah, no, it's true.
And people drank wine at lunch too.
Oh yeah. Well,
they don't do that in Washington
that was the 3-hour
anymore.
lunch.
They still do it in New York, but not quite in Washington. Well, when you were exploring Washington and the U.S., what were you looking for? Were you just looking for seeing historic sites, or were you going out and eating the food and exploring the food of America when you first got here? Did it intrigue
I think the food of America, I kind of explored it more in Washington than other places, and New York also.
It was quite.
I was going to New York
then.
as well, and but I felt that all the French restaurant was very similar.
Classic.
Yeah, absolutely. Here it was Jean-Pierre, but La Côte Basque in New York or La Caravelle, they all had kind of the same menu, using the same ingredient, being the same kind of French places.
With Lutèce sort of being a
little bit
top
more
of the heap
independent,
in New York.
Maybe a little different.
Yeah.
I think his Alsatian route was maybe a little stronger there, but and I was trying to see also and there was some new generation of chefs in the Jean-Louis trail, kind of bringing something new. And so when I went to California for the first time, I saw Wolfgang Puck, for example, who started maybe 82, 83, or a little bit later. He was at Ma Maison then. He was starting making change there.
Remember Ma Maison? Jonathan Waxman was there too.
Right.
Yeah.
And there was the beginning.
Oh no, Jonathan wasn't at Ma Maison. He was at Michael McCarty's.
Yeah, McCarty,
yeah. But they were both Wolfgang and Jonathan were the kind of.
And I think it was really the
chefs
beginning
there.
of American chefs starting to emerge, and I could see that in New York also. With the River Café, and but that was maybe a little bit after that. But in the early 80s, it was, so DC, for example, Patrick O'Connell will drive in his beat-up Chevrolet
around the neighborhood
here to come and do his market.
Foraging.
And Jean-Louis told me, he said, Jean-Louis, there is a wonderful American chef who has an inn outside of New York, outside of DC, you got to go and all that, and of course that was Patrick.
What Patrick was doing was he was a pioneer. I mean, not only was he cooking out there in Virginia, he was in a town that didn't even have liquor by the drink, and they had to not only build their restaurant, but they had to campaign to get liquor by the drink. They did the whole thing, and of course now it's
but otherwise, visiting the country, I did. I went to Florida. So I rented a car where I could sleep in it, and and I did the tour of Florida. I ended up in somewhere on the west coast of Florida.
Did they have any cuisine there?
No, but one time, Not too much. No, it was pretty depressing. But one time I had this car, so you know you have to plug the water, the electrical.
Yeah.
And I get into this camping place.
Yeah.
What do you call it? Like a trailer
an
park.
RV park. I
RV
guess.
park.
Yeah.
RV park. And so it was almost like dark. So I plugged the car, but then there was one more thing to plug, and I was a little short. So I jumped in the car and I put the gears to move the car again, and I ripped out everything, the water, the thing. And then that night I said, okay, what am I going to do?
You're going to cook for the whole campground.
No, yeah, well, maybe there is something interesting in that camp. And I get into this room where there were maybe 100 people playing bingo. So I was there playing bingo with the people, trying to understand the game. I couldn't get. Not that it's difficult, but it's just when you.
It's
That was my
interesting.
time in Florida.
Yeah, well, that was an interesting choice. I hope during the journey you stopped in the South so that you.
Oh yeah,
ate
I
some
went to
Southern cuisine.
Alligator Alley. I went to Key West.
That's actually cuisine.
Yeah, and that was actually a friend of Francis from Washington who was living down in Key West and had a boat, and I had his crab cage, and we went to pick up
Yeah, well,
stone
this-
crabs and
Yeah. Oh, they
like
are.
that. So that was like America to me.
Washington, it's very interesting to think about what Washington was like then, because you probably couldn't have opened a DBGB in Washington in 1982 or 83.
No.
It was, we had not, I don't know exactly when the turning point happened, because while Jean-Louis was very important, the real food revolution didn't come till a little bit later. But, and you, of course, the trajectory of your career was all New York and then expanding
Yeah.
out of New York. And you put off coming to Washington. You had thought about it before the market crashed, and then you decided we weren't ready, right?
Yes. Well, also, yeah, and maybe I don't know. I kept myself so busy in New York, and opportunity came to come to DC, but
But it was
I don't
always
know,
on your
it
mind.
never, yeah,
coming
it
to
was on my
Washington.
mind, but it never really materialized until City Center came about, and we did a restaurant in New York, DBGB, with Avalon at the time, and I think Avalon was involved at the early stage of City Center.
City Center.
And they are still managing. I think they are a management company there for the real estate. And so I think they came to us and said, Danielle, would you consider that?
So how did you decide that of your different concepts, because with Daniel's up here, and Café Boulud, and Bar Boulud, and Boulud Sud, and DBGB.
Oh, there's many, yeah.
There are many, there are many.
It's all,
All good, all wonderful. How did you decide that DBGB was the right concept for Washington?
I felt and I wanted something where we could offer value, but also a place where anyone can go. You don't have to be a lobbyist.
It's not formal, yeah.
A lobbyist on a higher budget than maybe somebody working at the office there, or a Washingtonian, or a family wanting to go out. So I wanted the place to be really approachable, and yet DBGB has high energy. I think it's young in spirit, but it's French and American, who I think that was a good fit for DC. I didn't want to be too French or too American either. And I think DBGB was about great ingredients, simple preparation, affordable price, a great choice of wine and beer.
And you don't have to do a tasting menu. You can go in
No.
and have a burger, or you can go
Yeah,
in and have
exactly.
an amazing duck.
Oh, you
I
can
mean,
have a
it's just-
three-course meal.
You can
and
have a whole
really
suckling pig, right?
Also, yeah, if
Yeah, no, that's-
you and your
that's-
10 friends,
No, I
that
think
worked
that's
very
great,
well.
Though. No, that's. I have seen
So-
people tweeting about their suckling.
So
pig
you know, there's
extravaganzas.
I'm not a hipster chef. Where to me, a hipster
you're
chef
pretty,
is this new generation of chef who, they're
You
covered
have an amazing.
covered with tattoo and love to cook pigs
Yeah,
and
you don't
pork
have
and
any
all
tattoos,
that.
do you yet?
I
Daniel?
don't have any tattoo yet, but I do love them.
good
I
to
was in Boston last night, and I went to see a young chef who just opened a restaurant called Townsman, and it's Matt Jennings, and is a fantastic chef, also a new generation of chef, and I really love those chefs. But at the same time, it wasn't my time and my generation then, a little more strict and disciplined at my time. But I think yet we love to cook food, we speak loud sometime, or speak a little bit rustic or gutsy or.
Well, let's talk about American chefs and French chefs and the typical American journey and your journey, because you came up classically in France. You from your youngest day, I mean, you grew up with your family cooking and your parents and lots of influence there. And I think you were first in a kitchen, what, at 14?
Yeah.
And you were an apprentice. We don't have an apprentice program here. I mean, we have stages, but we don't have an apprentice program. And I was curious if but we do have cooking schools, and cooking schools are a big deal. And you seem to respect them now.
I do, yeah. No, at the beginning I didn't respect them too well, yeah.
Do you think they replicate the apprentice system of France in some way?
Different in a way. I think I went to a cooking school in Lyon when I was 14 because my parents thought I should stay at school.
Yeah, but you didn't like
I hated the school so much because the food was worse than at home, what they were teaching us. And
you already knew more than the teachers.
I didn't know more. I just knew they were bad.
That's a form of knowing more.
Maybe. And so I told my parents, I said, get me out of there. And, you know, sometime we came from a very simple, a family where we always had anything we wanted, or not anything, but everything we needed. And we
you had
always,
a farm.
and we were very respected by what we were doing, which I think today you see that in America also, where farmers are really people we really respect, and
you need them.
And yeah, we need them, and they do beautiful things, and we trust them, and having something entirely organic and natural.
You're the end result of good farming.
Yeah,
whether
so
it's wine or food.
We had this lady living next door to us, who was a contessa, and she was the Contessa di Volpi, and she was a lady in her late age, but was still driving a Mustang convertible. 1968.
She was hip.
She was hip, and she had a poodle next to her. She had blue hair and smelled like Bloomingdale's, and was drinking at least 2 bottles of whiskey a day between her and her friends, and smoking 2 packs of Craven. But she had horses at the racetrack, where she had a whole. She was going to the casino all the time. She was just living the life. And she was coming to the farm all the time. And when I was 12 years old, she bought me my first watch. And so my parents say, I don't know, we don't know what to do with Daniel. He don't want to go to school anymore. He wants to be a cook. And so she said, I'm going to find him the best job there is in Lyon. So give me some time. She went around to all the best restaurateurs. From Fernand Point.
She was your agent.
Bocuse. She was my agent then, imagine. Because she was eating in those restaurants all the time.
Well,
and they were
that's
like,
what you needed.
They were bowing in front of her because she was spending money on wine, spending money on waiters, whatever.
It worked.
So, when she gave an orders, like, I need to put that kid somewhere, then everybody said, yes, no problem. So she found me a job at a 2-star restaurant in Lyon. And that really was the start, because the restaurant was a Relais Chateau, Tradition et Qualité, Nandron. Nandron. And it was really embedded with with Lyon. It was a true Lyonnaise restaurant. And very classic.
And that was the food you knew, that you had been eating at home?
And the father was the one who wrote the curriculum for apprentice in France. So, there was a legacy of teaching there.
Yeah.
And so starting there, 3 years there, of course, I was sometimes troubled. Sometimes I was by myself living in the town. My uncle was giving me a room nearby where he was, but he didn't have time to take care of me.
Did you have your parent? Could your parents eat at that restaurant? Would your parents come to eat?
They couldn't afford it. They never ate there. But what I did is, when I was about 16, I cooked a meal for about 30 people of all the good dishes that I felt was like maybe the most representative of the cooking I was doing. So that was about as close as they got to the food I was making there. When I went to Georges Blanc after, then they came and eat there.
Are your parents still alive?
Yeah, they're 88.
So they've been able to see Daniel.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
They were in New York last year actually.
What was the first what was the first restaurant job of yours that you were able to show them? I mean, was it Le Cirque or was it Westbury or did they not?
No,
come?
the Westbury. They came in 1983 or 83 or 84. 1984 they came.
Because the Westbury was after Washington, right?
Yes, yeah. Exactly. Right after Washington. So I moved, and there was this company, Trostas Forte, and that's why Jean-Louis Paladin again. Trostas Forte was managing the Watergate, and so Jean-Louis said, I told Jean-Louis because I had a misfortune after the embassy. After 2 years at the embassy, I had a little bit of a misfortune. I made a mistake, and I went to the wrong place. I don't know if you remember Four Ways.
I do remember Four Ways.
Right.
It's now the House of Scientology, but I remember
not,
when it was.
I'm really not surprised about that.
No, but I mean, it was a restaurant and had nothing to do with Scientology. It had come over here from Bermuda.
Yeah, but it had nothing to do with great food either.
Well, there's that. But,
so.
But I do remember it.
I signed up for that because I needed to go from a visa of a diplomatic employee to a working visa, so
right. Standard job.
A1 visa or something. Mm-hmm. So I spoke to the owner earlier, and I was the first person hired at Four Ways 6 months before the restaurant opened.
Chef?
No, sous chef.
Sous chef.
I was
okay.
fine. I was happy with that.
Yeah, right.
But at the same time, I didn't know who was the chef. I didn't know who was the manager, and he had to hire. He was Austrian, but he had to hire a German manager. And the first meeting I had, the manager didn't even say hello to me. Didn't even consider me. I was just a sous chef, whatever. And I say, it's over. I'm gonna do by respect to the owner, I say I will do the opening, but I'm out of here in the next 2 to 3 months.
Wow.
So look for somebody else.
Well,
so I did the opening, and
then you went to Jean-Louis and you said, please help me.
And I told Jean-Louis, I said, I got to find something. I want to go to New York. Mm-hmm. What do you think? And he said, let me see. The Westbury Hotel just renewed the Polo Lounge there. Mm-hmm. And let me talk to Mr. Fahmy at the time. And that's how Jean-Louis put me in touch. And so I drove with my friend Charlie Dahan from here because I didn't have a car. So he drove me to New York. I made a big tasting. They were very impressed. And they hired me as a sous chef because I wanted to be the chef. But they said, well, can you come as a sous chef and we'll give you Plaza Athénée as a chef 2 years later, the same company.
Oh, so that's how you ended up at Plaza Athénée.
So my idea was like, okay, my parents come to New York for the first time in 1983.
Ever?
Yeah, well, they've never been. No, because.
Okay, I'm just wondering,
Then, so
that's very exciting.
I helped them come here and all that. And my cousin and his wife also was here. So very exciting. And then I say, well, we're going to live the American dream. So I'm going to rent a car and we're going to drive to Florida. So now
I thought you'd already learned your lesson.
I rent a big Continental, that the one who had the huge...
The big fins.
It was incredible. And now we decided to go to Florida. We were 5 in the car. I was barely past New Jersey and Newark and already got a ticket.
Well, that's okay.
And then by the time we passed DC, it took us 2 days to get down there, but most of the time the highway was encased between valley, so you couldn't see anything.
Right.
So we didn't see much of the countryside.
You just got to Florida and then turned around and came back.
Yeah, well, we came back. That was a long trip. That was a little brutal.
And so they got to see you working in a fancy New York Upper East Side restaurant. You then go over to Plaza Athénée and you're the head chef.
Yes.
That was, but I thought you were. Were you never head chef at the Westbury?
Well, I was kind of the head chef because the chef
there.
de cuisine, they hired the chef de cuisine from France, who was recommended by Roger Verger.
Okay.
And actually, I worked at Roger Verger. He was a sous chef there. And he's the guy who called me one day and said, Daniel, I have 3 kids. Do you want to go to America? I have this offer in Washington to be a chef in the embassy. Do you want to go there? And I say, yeah, why not? So it's him who sent me to America, who 3 years later is applying for a job at the Westbury and is taking over my job, which I wanted to be the chef. So that's why I agree. I said, okay, I'll be co-chef, because he wasn't speaking English either so well. So I was basically running the show and
I just
the
remember
restaurant.
you getting some press at the
Oh yeah,
Polo
oh yeah,
Lounge.
very much.
You
Yeah,
did,
yeah.
because
No,
that
I
was the first
pushing.
time I read about you. I remember that, because when
Me
Richard
too.
Adams said Daniel Boulud is at the Plaza Atene, I was like, yeah, he's been on my radar, but I haven't had his cooking. And that restaurant, was that your first chance to go in and you created the menu?
Yeah, even at the Westbury, I was
got to
very
do that.
involved, and that was the beginning where you could really stop buying 10 cases of Dover sole every week and look for local fish and really do food. We were first with the ingredient you had on the market here before you had to bring everything from France, because all the French restaurant was bringing a lot of stuff from France often, and it was really a different cuisine. Every restaurant was really more personalized in the experience of food, and that's what I wanted. And I've been in the same zip code in New York for 35 years.
It's interesting. I even remember what I had. I had soft shell
30
crabs.
years.
Yeah, so they were great too, by the way. But it was interesting because you went from there to Le Cirque, and I imagine at Le Cirque, you didn't get to do your own menu. Wouldn't Sirio was the last of the owners who ran the chef rather than...
Sirio was friend with all the great chefs of France.
Yeah.
And one time I was at the Plaza Athénée, and there were a lot of French chefs in town, including Paul Bocuse, Roger Verger, Jacques Maximin, and all. And that was the 60th birthday of Paul Bocuse. So now he's 88, going on 89. So, the celebration of his 60th birthday was at the Plaza Athénée, and I had the honor to cook for all those chefs, all those fancy
Was this your first time meeting Sirio, or had you two met?
Well, I knew of him, but not so much. And Sirio was there as a guest. And then all those chefs, they invite me also to go to have dinner at Le Cirque.
Okay.
And we had a dinner, and it was okay. But then Jacques Maximin, with such a big mouth and can't keep it quiet, he goes to Sirio and says, "Sirio, we love you." In French, he was telling him, "Sirio, we love you, but your food really sucks."
I think you'd had a few glasses of wine, right?
Sirio was so embarrassed. And then a couple of days after, no, not a couple of days, and then the next day, Paul Bocuse spoke to Sirio and said, "You should snatch Daniel from the Plaza Athénée and to be your chef, because I think that you are dreaming to be like us in France. You want the restaurant to do better, to be more tuned up to the time."
Yeah.
And Alain Sayac was doing a great job, but he was not the generation to be able to make change like that.
How long after you got to Le Cirque was it when you got 4 stars from the New York Times?
For 6 months, yeah, maybe.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
Were you surprised?
6 months to, yeah.
Or did you see it coming?
I started in November,
did you just
and it
feel
was
in your
the
groove?
spring. No, but I revolutionized the place and totally changed everything. I mean, the real first menu started for New Year's Eve, and then went on, and then the spring menu after. And so I was respecting the classic of Sirio. So every Saturday, every day there was a special. And every Saturday was Bolito Misto or pot-au-feu. Sirio was always like, he was this Italian who wished he was French, but at the same time was never going to want to be French because he wanted to be too dapper.
He wanted to be Italian.
He wanted to be Italian. So when it came to food, he trusts the French more than the Italian, but he still wanted Italian dish on the menu. So for that, he had his wife, Gianna, who was a fantastic home cook. And he was telling Gianna, can you give some idea to Danielle for the menu?
How'd you feel about that?
I loved it.
Oh, that's
I mean,
great.
yeah, she will invite
It's
me
like
on
having
Sunday.
your mama in the kitchen.
Yeah, exactly. And she will invite me on Sunday in their home, and they will argue for hours on things and in Italian, so I had no idea what they were talking about. But it was very animated, but at least the food was fantastic, and the wine too.
Who was the critic who gave you 4 stars for the first time?
Brian Miller.
Yeah, yeah.
I got that twice, 4-star, yeah, with Brian Miller
But this is your
over
first.
6 years.
I mean,
yeah.
there's nothing like your first 4 stars.
Absolutely.
I mean, that
And then Le Cirque was, it was a crazy place. It was so busy, so much power in the room.
such a
at the time.
particular crowd. A lot of
And
them
a particular crowd. I mean, it was
would
the...
often just want steamed chicken and peas, you know.
No,
I mean,
no.
I would
well,
watch them
yeah, we had
sometimes,
few
Daniel.
people, but, you know, it was the Nancy...
taught them.
That was the Nancy Reagan crowd at
Yeah,
the time.
yeah, that's what I mean.
So, yeah.
You taught them, though. You taught them that there was a way
Betsy
to eat well.
Bloomingdale, Nancy Reagan, Barbara Walter, they were all there in the rooms.
And so President Reagan came there.
Oh
for
yeah,
dinner.
many
Was-
times. I mean, Bernard, the Metrody, served 7 presidents, I think.
Who was the first president you ever served? Reagan?
No, actually, the first president I ever served was Nixon.
Nixon. Where was that?
Nixon at the Westbury.
At the Westbury.
Because his daughter lived on 70th and Madison, in between 5th and Madison, and he was coming to see her a lot and coming for lunch. Yeah.
He was quite a gourmet.
Oh yeah,
He was
yeah,
quite
yeah.
an
No,
eater,
it was
quite
fun.
a
Oh
quite
yeah,
a
yeah. He loved
connoisseur of wine.
French food as well, and yeah. I mean, at the time I didn't know what to think of him, but
Well, he was no longer in office, so
yeah,
you
no,
didn't have- you
absolutely,
could just-
yeah. But he was kind of a. He was even kind of a. There weren't too much fuss around him, like you know, you
like
see
when they are
sometimes.
president.
Yeah, when they are president, or even when they are post-president, and they are still have security around them
Yeah.
and all that. And
But who was the first president you cooked for who was in fact at that time president, and you had Secret Service in your kitchen?
So after that was Bill Clinton, and and that was in a private house in the Hamptons, and it was a fundraising, $30,000 per person, and there were about 70 or 80 people there, and you know, the security they had, it was by the water, so they had like people in the water, people everywhere.
But what about in your kitchen? What did they have in your
So
kitchen?
what I love is that they say when the president arrived, everybody freeze, nobody moves. So I said, okay. So I put myself right in front of the door, you know, the front door where the president come in. The kitchen door was right there. So I opened the door and I stay right there. And the first thing the president did, he said hello to me, and he said hello to the host, he said hello to me, and then I moved myself. And he came to the kitchen and spent like 15 minutes in the kitchen taking pictures with the cooks and everything. And everybody paid a lot of money to see him.
Yeah. He's in the kitchen.
He's in the kitchen. It was nice. And then what was interesting was then, you know, they always do speech and all that. But Hillary did a speech for about 30 minutes versus him maybe a little bit less.
And that was your time to cook, right?
Yeah.
But did you have a taster? Was there a taster in there?
No, because I think he was not president then. Yeah, that was a long time ago. I don't think he was president then.
Okay.
He was doing a fundraising for his campaign.
You have cooked for.
But he was,
heads of
yeah, or he was,
state
no, he was president
Yeah.
then because there was too much security. Yeah,
much
that's right. Yeah, no, absolutely.
And-
No, he was president. So maybe there was a second round. I don't remember. And then after I cooked for Obama, before he was president, after he was president, I cooked for Carter. I cooked for. One day I had a party, and that was at the Radio City Music Hall.
Nice.
And they were celebrating, I think Time Magazine was celebrating the 75th anniversary of 50th or 75th, I think. And so they had 750 people, and I was hired to do the catering. They closed off Rockefeller Center for 2 days before with security. they transformed Radio City Music Hall into every 10 seats. They build up stage over 10 seats like this, and then they had tables, and all the tables was lit, and then there was the stage. And the 750 people were the most powerful and successful and rewarded people in the world. From politics to showbiz to sport to tech to business to everything.
To chefs.
And international. So Gorbachev had a speech at the time for 30 minutes, Bill Gates, Christopher Reeve, all that. And so I was in charge of serving those people. And that was the first date, and I cooked for so many powerful people in one shot.
Right.
Because I all had them different
but
ways.
But then you were kind of used to it, so.
And so I remember I served a crab salad, and I built 2 kitchens in those kind of hallway of the Radio City Music Halls, and the street also there. And then for the main course, the dish, I served lamb chamballon. And lamb chamballon was a dish I made at Le Cirque, and I learned to make it there. It was an old French classic, which I've never done it before, but at Le Cirque they were doing it, and I kind of perfected a little bit myself there. And I say, well, this will be the perfect meal. There's nothing more peasant in that meal than lamb chamballon. It's basically you roast lamb chop, nicely seared with a nice color. And then after you take a sort of a gratin dish, and you put a layer of sweated onion and layer of potatoes. Then you put the lamb chop, onions over, fresh thyme, bay leaf, potatoes, and cover. And then you have a little bit of lamb stock and butter a little bit, and you braise that for like an hour and a half, very gently. And so the lamb chop is really off the bone, totally well done.
Oh my God.
And the potatoes are confit. They take all the flavor of the lamb. And so I remember I had 120 casserole I had to buy in copper, 120 pot to have the waiter serve that thing with a spoon and give 3 lamb chop to everyone and the potatoes. And it was just like a home meal for those people.
And it went off without a hitch.
It was a big success.
You must have. What do you do after an
No,
occasion
because the
like
scare
that? Do you
was
just collapse?
I cannot cook a meat rare, I cannot cook a meat pink, I cannot. So it had to be a braise, and I wanted that to be sort of lamb chop. It's glamorous, and yet it's peasant. So
yeah, I wonder sometimes how it would have gone down about 25 years ago. People came into restaurants and said, "But I'm a vegan." And yet now, and now, you have.
Now we have vegetarian menu tasting and all that.
Yeah. Speaking of the tasting, what do you think of the trend in the highest end restaurants of just purely tasting menus rather than a la carte? What is the reason for that?
I think the reason is certainly because they are scared of consistency. They want, basically the menu is engineered often in a way that first the people who goes to those restaurants are not going back the week after. They are really going on special occasion, and often the restaurant is small. And I think it's interesting. It's nice. I haven't jumped into that. Because I note and already making change in my restaurant at Daniel, especially because not in any other restaurant I will do that, but making change at Daniel. I went from a 3-course prefix to a 4-course prefix, and I think it's very good. It's the perfect balance for an evening and an experience at Daniel. And then we have a tasting menu with 8 and 10 course. But it's not an opposition of having just an 8-course or 10-course or 12-course.
Do you think that a too big tasting menu though can exhaust the palate?
Yeah, totally.
And that the customer just begins to lose the appreciation of what you're doing?
Some people
don't want that.
Some people lack that because that's entertaining them.
Yeah.
But if you have a good friend and you want to be entertained by your friend, you don't want to be bothered every 2 minutes by a course coming in front of you.
How long should dinner be in a restaurant like Daniel?
Daniel, I think 2.5 hours, which I think it's good, but it could carry longer if you take a tasting.
Yeah.
But if you take a 4-course, 2.5 hours should be the norm. But you can be as leisure as you want. But we always calculate 3 hours for, let's say, 2 people or 4 people, and then 3.5 hours for 6 or 8.
Since you are the most famous chef in the world at this time.
No, I am
Yes,
one
you
of
are.
them.
No, yes, well, I've heard, no, I like the person who calls you the most famous chef in the world. How can you go into restaurants like yours and eat and not have the chef come out and say, let me cook for you?
That's
I mean, how
unskippable.
You can't go in and disguise and just
It's it's even sometimes in places where you think
like a pizza parlor.
no, it's gonna be fine. They don't know why we're gonna have a nice dinner there, and that's so. My wife used to my ex-wife, but she used to straight the chef out right away when we sit down. She said, "For me, no tasting." And for me, no this, no this, no this, and no tasting. So the chef was squared out right away. So after that, I was like trying to make him feel better. So I would say, okay, for me, maybe 5 course, no more.
You can do whatever you want. And then, do you always have to come in and see the kitchen too?
No, but usually the team like to make pictures and
right.
things like that. So
but
it's always
the
nice.
price
And
of fame, and it's probably worth it,
yeah, but
right?
it's also for me. I mean, I want to be thankful for their talent, for their passion, and for not only caring about me, but caring about making their place a special place.
Do you ever get up at night and turn on your computer and read Yelp, and read what?
No, no.
No, really?
But once a week we have a meeting.
Yeah.
And we read all this sort of.
Or do they read it to you? Do they filter it and read it to you?
No. At the meeting we do read the whatever the public platforms have in order to stay tuned with it, and we can make mistake. It's okay, or we can be glorified for what we do. It's fine too, but.
Because do you feel that the social media though has, in some regard, minimized the power of the professional critics? And
yes,
is it a good or bad
because
thing?
and also not only the social media but the whole communication today. Before, you will have never been to a place, you will dream to go there. You will have maybe read about it, but you will have seen hundreds of pictures of it and the food and this and that. Today, before you go to a place, you know the place more than if you, I don't know, than your own little local restaurant sometime, and I feel that on the media side, they still subsist and exist because people want a professional opinion, but does not mean that opinion is a good opinion. It's just an individual opinion. And it's not always the right opinion. I've been thrown under the bus by the media, and that's okay. I'm usually coming out of the bus and kicking again.
It's interesting about you. What you do when that happens is you may have a little pity party, but basically you just dig in and you show them. You just
absolutely.
Say, oh, you think that? Let me show you. And then you come back, and the next review is 4 stars or another critic.
I remember, but at the same time, I think I trust my team, and I really want the customer to be the judge. To me, is the client who has to be the judge of what we do, and not a critic who comes sometime once a year and to visit once, maybe not even once a year, sometime every 5 years or 8 years and pay a visit, versus a customer who will, if he love it, is going to come back maybe once a month. We have regular customers. They live in Oklahoma, they live in Arkansas or anywhere. And they come twice a year in New York, and they come twice a year to see us. Or they, to us is a regular customer. I mean, I remember you. You would come to New York without coming to see me.
No, that's never happened, Daniel. No.
So that's and you didn't have to read any review or any critic to know who you liked and where you want to go.
I remember one dinner in particular, bringing Leona Helmsley in for dinner and her trying to poach you from your own restaurant.
Well.
She's in Daniel, and she's saying, "Oh, come work for me."
Well, I'm glad she didn't become my investor.
She was an audacious woman. Talk to me about investors for a moment. Do investors have to? it takes a particular type of person to be an investor. I mean, it's
Yeah,
not everybody's
but
game,
depends.
right?
Yeah, absolutely. But I'm an odd case because when I was looking for money for my first restaurant, I was trying to raise 2.5 million, and I had a lot of customers who said, Danielle, when I was at Le Cirque, whenever you want to go in business, let me know. I would love to invest with you. But then 1989 came. We all went down in the economy, and I was looking to open a place in 91, 92, and that was very hard to raise money at the time. People were still trying to make a recovery from
Right.
89.
And this was for your first Daniel on 76th Street, which is now Café.
and
Boulud.
so I had raised about 1.5 million. I needed another million, basically.
Couldn't open a restaurant for that today, could you? Not a
Yes, you
Daniel.
could. Maybe in Brooklyn, in the garage. But
It's a brutal business.
so one of the investors, who actually has his brother living in Washington, is Joel Smilo, and I knew his niece, not his niece, his niece by marriage, Lily Linton, and she said, Joel is retiring from Playtex, and he made quite a lot of money personally, a smart guy, smart businessman, and he was retiring from Playtex. And he didn't know, he wanted to be one of the investors, but he wanted to meet me. So we met. He never had my food before. He was not a type of customer who was going to Le Cirque. He was more like the 21
But he was hearing
Club.
about you from Lily, probably?
Yeah, he was more like the 21 Club, the Four Seasons, kind of the businessman. But he heard a lot from Lily. He read about me. And at the end of the meeting, he said, I'd rather be one of them than, I'd rather be the only one than one of them. So I'll be your only investor if you want. And
How do you feel about
we
that?
can start tomorrow.
Did you have people say, "Oh, you don't want only one investor"?
No,
or
I
did
felt like, to me, I felt not only is going to be the only investor, but he's a very smart guy.
Yeah.
He took Playtex public and private twice. He made hundreds of millions. He gave 200 million to NYU hospital in New York, or more maybe. He gave hundreds of millions to Yale. I mean, he really gave back whatever he earned. But at the same time, he just gave me the money because he helped me, but he didn't give me the money. I mean, I gave it back.
I bet
That
many
wasn't a
times
donation
over.
with me.
No, I mean, how many?
But at least Joel, he felt like at the time Michael Jordan was the hottest basketball player, and so he felt like he was buying Michael Jordan of cooking.
Yeah, and you're still
the
playing
fantastic
your
part-
A game.
We have been partner 22 years now, or 23.
And Lily is what in the
And
company?
Lily is also a partner in the
Right.
company in a more minority
Right.
place than Joel, but
But she's active in the management.
exactly.
Of
She's
where you're
much more
going
active
and
on
what
the
you're-
day-to-day because Joel is retired, but he's still connected to the business. He has
Right.
always good advice to give on the board, and but so it's funny how his story goes. But I left Le Cirque, and 4 years later, Le Cirque was moving to the Palace,
Yeah.
and the Mayfair Hotel was closing,
Yeah.
and they were turning that hotel into a condominium. And so at the time, the developer came to me and said,
At Daniel on 76th Street.
on 76 and say, would you like to come back to 65th Street and open your restaurant? I will sell you the real estate, and we have like 17,000 square foot of real estate in 3 floors. It's all the commercial. You will have the entrance of the hotel as a canopy because we want an entrance on Park Avenue, and as a condominium, it's better Park Avenue than 65th Street. And if I didn't have Joel Smilo, if I had 10 other partners, and I didn't
Right.
have Joel Smilo, I could have never done it, because he had to put up almost, we had to buy the place and invest. I mean, it was public in the paper, but we invested $10 million in the restaurant. Plus,
That
we
was
bought
what,
the space.
1998?
98.
And that was your
So
first expansion.
I will not do that today, but then I think I was crazy enough to take the risk.
But Daniel, think of it. That was your first expansion because you kept the old Daniel and turned it into Café Boulud.
Yes,
that was, so
exactly.
You had two places.
No, I had Paillard also, because I helped,
Right,
in between, I helped François Paillard, the pastry chef, to open
Right.
Paillard Pâtisserie and Bistro.
Right. Which
But
was
then
wonderful.
we stayed 2 years in business together because I love François, but I didn't want to be his partner anymore. So.
Yeah, right. I know. I miss it. But now, how many do you have today?
16.
And do you want to have more?
I don't know. No.
I mean, you know.
But I just had a son a year ago. He's going to have his first birthday in next week. So
Julian.
I may have, Julian. So I may have to work a little longer.
And you have a daughter, Alix.
Yes.
And if Julian should say to you, Dad, I want to be a chef, and if Alix said, Dad, I've changed my mind, I want to be a chef.
Oh no, that
no?
will not be. I don't think she'll be a good chef if she does that.
No, she's
I can
made
tell.
clear she doesn't want
she
to.
can maybe say, I want to
young
work
enough.
in your business, but no, I don't want her to cook.
But she's still young enough that I think that
Yes,
she could. But Julian,
absolutely.
if Julian wanted to be a chef,
Yes,
what would you say?
I would be very happy. I think I will
good.
support him, but I will put him to the greatest school of business and the greatest school of cooking as well.
Yeah.
And put him in some of the greatest chef of his time when it will be, and make sure that he's a smart chef. Yeah.
When Alix was a baby and with Julian as a baby, did you make their baby food?
Yeah, my wife does Julian's baby food, but I always kind of select ingredients.
And you live above the restaurant, right?
I live above the restaurant.
Of course,
it's
just
because
on Park Avenue. It's not.
when I negotiated the restaurant, Danielle, which was to me like the retirement plan, I say, let's take a mortgage on. Eventually, I'll take a mortgage on that place if I need to, but at least, and then of course, I negotiated an apartment above.
Yeah.
Because they were trying to be so nice to me.
Do you have a secret stairwell down to the kitchen?
Yeah, absolutely.
I didn't know, but it's good. It's good to know your kitchen's wonderful.
No, absolutely.
I wanted to ask: is there any truth to an item I read that? Speaking of Lily, because her brother is he with Sony?
Yeah.
Okay, and you got involved somehow in the
have
Sony
read,
hack, but in a nice way.
And you have read WikiLeaks?
Well, there's no, well, I read everything. But there was some talk, and maybe it's still going on, of doing a reality show and something.
No.
No, not going to happen?
No.
You don't have time?
No.
Paris, Texas?
Yes. Oh, yeah.
Well, I mean, it seemed very appealing.
That my idea of a diner, yes.
But that would be a real diner.
A real diner.
And would a TV show take place there? Was that the idea?
That we don't know yet.
I see.
But yeah, that was an idea in somewhere in a sort of a neighborhood where the diner will feel good. And
it was a great, and what, one half of the menu Paris and the other half of the menu Texas.
Well, not Texas, but America. Yeah,
America.
French and America.
Nothing wrong with Texas.
Oh, yeah, well, of course. There'll be barbecue. But this is crazy world. I mean, she has conversation with her brother, who has conversation with friends, and then it blows into.
Then everybody's reading
sphere.
your emails about you.
I mean, it's like I saw that 2 days ago.
Nobody was
But it's okay. Nobody was hurt.
Calling names.
No,
it was just
exactly.
very
No, it was a
polite,
conversation. It was
very businesslike.
Yeah, absolutely.
Very...
And Lily, she's a very smart lady. They're so. I mean, even Joel. I mean, you can be in the restaurant business and you have to be careful because it's it's a business where if it's your own business, you do whatever you want with it. But Joel Smilo was always very, and Lily too. She's a very safe person.
Lily is the contemporary woman in your life, like the lady with the blue hair next door in Lyon.
Very much.
Looking out for what might come next.
She has always been my guardian angel here for sure.
But that's good. How does your week go? Do you ever just block out time when you say I'm not going to travel for a week, or when you have this many restaurants in this many countries?
No, but
you
I
have
have
a responsibility.
I mean, in New
to
York
be there.
we have 850 people working for us, and out of that, there's about 50 people who are just management,
Right.
Corporate, And so they take care of the travel also. They take care of communication. We're in communication every day with a report from every restaurant on everything who happened that day at the restaurant. Every morning we receive a report. And then after we have also a weekly meeting. So sometimes it's either on Skype or it's on conference call with all the management and the head of management here in New York, in New York, who is in charge of that restaurant and then on the other side there is the chef, the manager, the sommelier, the assistant, whoever is in charge of managing that restaurant. Yeah. And they go through the whole week, and they go through the whole, so PR is involved.
It's like running the White House.
It is. Briefing.
With your own situation
absolutely.
room.
Yeah, exactly. We have a situation room all the time.
When was the last time you cooked?
That's a bad question.
I mean it with affection.
That was last night, actually.
Oh, in Boston?
Yes.
At your restaurant there?
I was cooking.
Okay,
I was
good.
cooking.
I believe it.
Because actually I have a dish called paupières of sea bass. And it's a dish I created at the CX 30 years ago. And it's the 30th anniversary of the dish. So sometime we do it here and there.
Are you going to do it at DBGB here in DC?
Maybe. I don't know. Maybe not this trip, but we will.
Okay.
And so, of course, the cook has never cooked that dish before. So I have to cook the dish with him. So I cooked about 20 sea bass yesterday.
Well, we only have about a minute
left. Is that
left.
Cooking to you?
I mean, look.
No, I cook a lot.
You are a brilliant cook.
I love
we
to
want
cook.
You to be
the problem
cooking.
is that sometime in the kitchen, I jump into a station of a cook and I cook with him. I'm not running a station anymore, and that's not my job to run the station also.
We just have so little time left, and we could talk forever, but there was talk once upon a time about possibly opening another restaurant in Washington. Have you shelved that? Do you think?
No, I'm very happy with the DBGB. I'm blessed, and people love it, and I really love that place. And I don't know how many of you have been there, but I hope you will.
Yeah. and you know, it's just a little younger than Julian. It's 9 months old.
Yes.
And that's the time it takes.
And the staff is so young. The chef is 26 years old.
Yeah.
And it was his first job as a chef, and he's really working so hard. So I can see in those young chefs myself when I was in DC, 26 years old.
All these years
But when
later,
I came
you're
to
back.
DC, I was 26, and I didn't have a Daniel Boulud to help me. So
and now you're just a little,
I had John Reed.
a little bit older. Our time is up. This is the most recent of Daniel's books. He's got many books. They're wonderful. This is My Best. And you can cook from it.
And what's interesting is that there's only 10 recipes or 11. Because after all, when you have a cookbook, you never cook more than 11 recipes or 10 out of it. So that was the idea, to keep you focused.
Thank you, Daniel. Thank you for coming
thank
back
you, Carol.
to Washington. And thank you for coming to the Q&A Cafe.
Thank you for 3 decades of friendship, too.
Thank you.
Merci.